Hey, you. Yeah, exactly, you. Do you want to join the middle? Do you perhaps want to write people up in your book of vengeance? Do you feel like having 8 whole enemy skills? And also, do these multiple paragraphs of text confuse you? Well then you're at the right place, as I'll be going over literally everything you need to know about this identity and how to play her. As all you need to really know going into this identity is that you need to constantly generate vengeance marks and act upon your grudges and commit complete and total extermination. But regardless, genuinely the most optimal way to play this identity is to constantly be enacting upon vengeances. Much like my previous video covering House of Spiders Ryoshu, I want to start by first telling you about its gimmicks and how to optimally play into them. She has a whole whopping 12 status effects, but all you need to really care about is the first 3 and the last one. If you are familiar with middle identities, then you should be familiar with how the first 2 work. But anyway, Outis applies Vengeance Mark to multiple enemies that dealt the most damage last turn to any allies, whereas Book of Vengeance is applied to one singular enemy that dealt the most damage to just Outis. And attacking enemies that have these 2 status effects allow you to get the middle grudge. And this status is one of the 2 most important status effects and allow Outis to get stronger and stronger the more she gets of this status effect. Grudge is gained through a multitude of ways, as there are of course various ways to brutally kill and get revenge on those who wronged you. Generally you gain grudge whenever you attack units that have Vengeance Mark or the book status on them, but you can also get them through making envy resonance, when getting hit, when Outis' daughter, Kira Ishmael, gets hit, and when a House of Spider ally is hit. Now at first glance it doesn't seem like grudge does much, and yes, by itself it doesn't do anything really. But whenever you consume a certain amount of grudge, Outis will get the middle vengeance tattoo, which is the actual status we're looking to build up here. This is the stat effect that every single skill benefits off of, either by making coins unbreakable or having damage scaling based off the number of tattoos. You want to get the status effect as high as possible. Now the obvious question is, how exactly do you consume grudges to gain tattoos? The only way you can consume it is through 3 ways. Either use the skill tree, use the enhanced skill tree, or brutally murdering your allies with this skill right here. Thankfully though, the game provides a constant source of skill trees, as every time you get a certain amount of grudge, she will get a skill tree slotted in on her leftmost action slot. So the game plan is generally to constantly spam counters to get hit, enact upon your vengeances, and use skill trees whenever you have enough grudge to turn it into a tattoo. Now that is all very simple really, but there's another gameplay loop happening here as well, as there's one status that I didn't cover just quite yet, that one being Rising Fever. This status effect is basically a counter that increases anytime you form envy resonance and use the skill tree, and once you get it down to a certain amount, Outis will use time to unpack and properly start up the unsealing gimmick. But generally, so long as you play into the first gameplay loop, you will naturally fulfill this anyway. And as for the unsealing gimmick, this is a status effect that constantly evolves, the next one being stronger than the last, and amps up every single time Outis uses time to unpack. And once you reach the final stage, you get access to her second set of skills, which you'll talk about soon. Do note that once you get to the final stage, Outis will consistently apply burns to herself and constantly drain her own sanity, but that's also for later. Anyway, you might have noticed that Outis has synergy with other identities. And 2 I want to highlight are Kira Ishmael and Araya Ryoshu. As for Ryoshu, it's quite simple. She'll get Entanglement and get this buff once Outis dies. And as for Kira Ishmael, if Outis is being deployed, Ishmael will gain I Got Praised and Outis will gain Check This Out Kiddo, both doing the exact same thing basically. Additionally, if Outis is present, Kira Male will also get middle grudge if Outis or a House of Spider ally is hurt. That all being said, however, here is a brief list of everything I haven't covered in terms of the passives. Like for example, how she just straight up fucking kills her teammates if they feel a clash when they're low HP. And I would also like to briefly mention that I'll go for Scissors Ego, as it is almost integral to ego resource generation in the middle team, since it takes your envy resources and turns them into other ones. So wasn't already obvious, Matthias Outis is an integral part of a middle team. So when you're not busy writing people up in the book or enacting vengeances, you should be using this ego whenever possible. And speaking of being written in the Book of Vengeance, I have a quick announcement to share, so you better listen or you'll be written up in my book. And no, this is not me pleading to you to like and subscribe, even though I'd really love it if you do so, but instead, I want to ask you a few questions. Do you sometimes find yourself bored when waiting for the next Kanto? Or do you perhaps get tired of constantly doing mirror dungeons while waiting for big updates? Is your Project Moon brain rot so gluttonous that it constantly wants more Project Moon content content to engage with that is just as good as the games, but instead made by the fans. Well then, I am happy to announce that I will be running a tabletop campaign set in the city starting June 14th for Absolute Pride residents. This is a project I've been working on for a really long time, and it's finally releasing soon and will be live streamed on my channel. And I want you and the rest of the community to be there for it. It is going to be a super high quality tabletop series set in L-Corp after the events of Limbus and set during the events of Limbus Company, as my players try to survive the worst place to currently be in the city. So keep your eyes peeled for more information, as I'll be posting more about it on my community post, including sneak peeks. And so in that light, stay tuned for more information about 13th Association, Base the City, Reclaim the Light. And also, a brief shout out to Jackafang, as I'll be using their Stars of the City rule set for the campaign. Anyway, with that being said, if you skipped that segment, I'm running you in the Book of Vengeance. But let's actually talk about Outis' skills now. Firstly, I would like to talk about the conditions that are very common among these skills. For example, everything skills off of burn and bleed on the target. And typically, the skills also become stronger the higher the tattoo stacks are on Outis, and also largely based on resonance. Skills 1 through 3 progressively gain more and more unbreakable coins the higher the tattoo stack is, along with damage scaling. Once the Leviathan status has been achieved, the base skills become enhanced, and the enhanced version of skill 1 through 3 all apply burn to Outis and drain her sanity. Exceptions to all of this are skill 1, which does not scale off of resonance, and skill 2, which for some ungodly reason is the only skill that does not scale off of the tattoo stacks on Outis. Anyway, skill 1 stomping is literally the only skill in this kit that isn't envy. Additionally, it is unique in the fact that it gives Outis sanity when used, so it's good to use at the beginning. Other than that, it's nothing to write home about, as it's also the only skill that doesn't apply burn in the slightest. Skill 2 on the other hand is where things start getting spicy. Don't Let This Break You generally skills much more off of bleed, burn and tattoos, while also having some super nice unconditional bite and paralyze application. And also, for some reason, this is one of the 2 only sources of aggro in the entire kit. Yeah, for some reason she just randomly has that here. I don't really know why. Both skill 2s are kinda weird. Skill 3, Stamp of Vengeance, is the one that's gonna be constantly appearing in your dashboard whenever you get enough garage, and is really powerful. On top of being a 4-coiner, it boosts the usual conditionals along with giving Outis blunt damage up if it was triggered in the form of a counter. Which, yes, this skill is available pretty much anytime as a counter, so long as you have enough MB resonance when using a counter. And now moving over to the enhanced skills before we get to the special skills. Skill 1-2, I'll got you like a fish. Even though realistically it doesn't look impressive, this is the part where Matthias Outis starts to get bonkers in terms of power, as I imagine these conditionals are put at an insanely high number. Because remember, you need to fully unseal the sword to be able to start using these skills. Other than that, it has conditional paralysis and binds, which is nice. Skill 2-2, Gut Stab, is holy shit a fucking 5-coiner. Yeah, this skill is weird. It has 5 whole goddamn coins, but it's also the only skill that doesn't scale off of tattoos. Which honestly is fair game, because otherwise this skill would be cracked beyond all belief if it isn't already. To top it all off, it has unconditional bite and paralyze application, which is insane. The coin effects are nothing special, but I don't think they need to be for 5 whole coins. Skill 3-2, Complete and Total Extermination, also has 5 whole coins for some ungodly reason. Aside from of course having insane amount of scaling depending on status effects, it also has extra damage depending on the final damage of coins, and funny enough, this is our second identity in the whole game that can deal all 3 damage types at once. And much like the regular skill 3, it consumes garage. As said before, Time to Unpack is used whenever Outis gets low enough rising fever stacks. This, aside from engaging with the seal mechanic, is actually a source of MP fragility, which considering you're likely to run this identity in a middle team, is basically just a straight up damage boost for the next turn. Whereas the other big special skill, Good Girl, Your Sacrifice for the Family Won't Be Forgotten, is one that will straight up likely murder your ally, as this is triggered whenever they get to low HP. This thing is 9 times out of 10 killing your ally unless some miracle happens. But this is more likely to trigger against Ishmael, as her health condition is going to be higher. Just be careful, as if your allies meet the HP threshold for this to trigger, the moment they lose a clash, Outis will instantly jump them and go for the kill, targeting them and the opponent that caused them to lose the clash. So for example, imagine you lost a clash to a Bulky, and you just so happen to roll tails multiple times in a row. Well, sorry buddy, but the family requires you to die so this vengeance can be crossed off the list and we can get revenge on this tiny little fucking chicken. Anyway, that just about does it really. Obviously, there are two teams that come to mind when running her, those being a team filled with middle identities or House of Spider allies, but that is already obvious I think. Also, before you go, I would usually ask you to like and subscribe, but now it's mandatory. Because if you don't do it, you'll be written down in the Book of Vengeance and my homie Ricardo will hunt you down across the entire globe. Oh, and also look forward to more news about my tabletop series that will happen soon. Anyway, that is all from me. Have a nice and vengeful day.